The champagne bubbles danced in my flute as I forced a smile across my face. All around me, Seattle's tech elite mingled beneath crystal chandeliers, their laughter echoing off marble floors. But I couldn't focus on any of it. My attention was locked on the email notification that had just lit up my phone screen. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Financial records sent to all Bennett family members. My heart stopped. I'd only meant to send those files to our tax consultant. Instead, I'd just accidentally shared 6 years of my company's growth history, my personal investments, and the trust fund from my late grandmother with my entire in-law family. The very people who, led by my sister-in-law Vanessa, had spent years calling me a gold digger behind my back. I looked across the charity gala to where Vanessa stood in a circle of admirers, her crimson dress matching the wine in her glass. She hadn't checked her phone yet. None of them had. But they would. And when they did, everything would change. Emma? Are you okay? Ryan's hand touched my lower back, concern etched across his face. My husband, the Bennett family's golden son, who never quite understood how his family treated me. Always caught in the middle, always hoping we'd just get along. I downed my champagne in one swallow. I just made either the biggest mistake of my life or the best thing that could have happened to us. 3 years earlier, I'd been sitting in a very different gala. My first official event as Ryan Bennett's fiancé. I still remembered the weight of the emerald engagement ring on my finger, how foreign it felt, how the waiters at Lakewood Country Club seemed to sense my discomfort, my otherness, offering me extra appetizers as if I might be unfamiliar with formal dining. "So you design phone apps?" Diane Bennett, my future mother-in-law, had asked, with the precise tone that made it sound like I created paper airplanes for a living. "Accessibility software," I corrected gently. "My company creates technology that helps people with disabilities navigate digital spaces more easily." "How charitable?" Vanessa had cut in, sipping her martini. "And your parents run a convenience store, was it?" "A grocery," I said, pride creeping into my voice despite myself. "Chen Family Market. They've served the Rainier Valley community for 30 years. "Fascinating," Vanessa replied, her smile never reaching her eyes. "Ryan has always had such a humanitarian streak." I had let it slide, as I'd let so many comments slide over the months of our engagement. The questions about prenuptial agreements asked just loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. The jokes about how quickly I'd said yes to Ryan's proposal. Now, 3 years into our marriage, I sat at another Bennett family gathering. This one, a birthday celebration for William, Ryan's father, at their Lake Washington estate. The home's soaring windows showcased the Seattle skyline across the water, a view I might have appreciated if not for the card being passed around the table. A birthday card for William, signed by all family members. When it reached me, I flipped it open to add my name beneath Ryan's. That's when I saw what Vanessa had written. "Happy birthday to the man who taught us the value of hard work. Some of us learned the lesson better than others." Below it, in smaller script, "Some just learned to marry into it." The heat of shame and anger rose to my face as I stared at the words. 3 years of snide remarks. 3 years of being treated like an interloper. 3 years of Ryan saying, "That's just how Vanessa is with everyone." "Everything okay, Emma?" William asked, his voice carrying down the length of the ornate dining table. I looked up to find Vanessa watching me, a subtle smirk playing at her lips. Around the table sat the Bennett dynasty. Diane, immaculate in pearls and cashmere. James, Vanessa's investment banker husband. Cousins and aunts and uncles whose names blurred together, but whose judgmental glances remained crystal clear. "Actually," I heard myself say, "I don't think it is." The table fell silent. Ryan tensed beside me. Vanessa, I continued, my voice surprisingly steady. Would you like to explain what you meant by your comment in the card? About marrying into hard work? Oh, Emma. Vanessa laughed, the sound like breaking glass. It was just a little joke. You're so sensitive. It wasn't a joke. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. It was an insult, the same kind you've been making since Ryan and I got engaged. Emma, Ryan murmured, his hand finding mine under the table. Maybe we should... No. I gently pulled my hand away. I'm done pretending I don't hear these comments. I'm done smiling through the disrespect. Diane cleared her throat. This hardly seems like appropriate dinner conversation. I agree, I said, standing up, which is why I'm leaving. Happy birthday, William. The gift Ryan and I brought is on the side table. I walked out, pulse pounding in my ears, ignoring Ryan's calls behind me. Outside, the cool evening air hit my face as I made my way down the winding driveway. My phone buzzed with texts from Ryan, but I slipped it back into my pocket. Instead of waiting for a rideshare, I started walking along the lakefront path that led away from the estate. The distant Seattle skyline glittered across the water, the Space Needle illuminated against the night sky. Emma, wait. Ryan caught, up to me, his dress shoes totally wrong for the gravel path. You shouldn't have left like that, he said, slightly breathless. You know how they are about appearances. That's the problem, Ryan, I replied, stopping to face him. Everything is about appearances with your family, not about what's right or kind or true. Vanessa was out of line. I'll talk to her. You've been saying that for 3 years. I hugged my arms against the evening chill. Nothing changes. They've decided who I am, the gold-digging outsider who trapped their golden boy. That's not how they see you. Isn't it? Do you know what your father asked me last Christmas? If my little app company was still a hobby, or if I'd given it up yet. Horizon Solutions employs 63 people, Ryan. We just closed a Series B funding round for $18 million. He ran a hand through his hair. Dad doesn't understand tech startups. To him, business means physical products, manufacturing plants. He understands disrespect, and so does Vanessa. I looked out at the water, gathering my thoughts. The worst part is, I've never given them reason to treat me this way. I've built my company from nothing. I've never asked for Bennett connections or money. I know that. But they don't. Or they choose not to. I finally met his eyes. And you let them believe it. The hurt in his expression was immediate, but I couldn't take the words back. Nor did I want to. That's not fair, he said quietly. Maybe not, but it's honest, and I'm done pretending. We stood in silence, the gentle lapping of water against the shore filling the space between us. Finally, Ryan sighed. What do you want me to do? I don't know, I admitted, but something has to change. I can't keep doing this. He nodded slowly. Let's go home. We'll figure it out. As we walked to his car, my phone buzzed with an email notification. Zoe, my business partner, had sent the quarterly financial reports I'd requested. Tomorrow we had a meeting with potential investors, and I needed to be prepared. Little did I know those financial reports would become the catalyst for everything that followed. The next morning, I woke before Ryan. I slipped out of bed and made my way to our home office, determined to review the financials before heading to work. Our condo in downtown Seattle offered a stunning view of Elliott Bay, but I barely noticed it as I focused on my laptop. I opened Zoe's email, downloading the attached reports. Horizon Solutions had grown exponentially in the past year. Our accessibility software was being adopted by major tech companies, governments, and educational institutions around the world. The company I'd started in my one-bedroom apartment 5 years ago, using my grandmother's modest inheritance as seed money, was now valued at over $70 million. I thought of my parents, who had worked 14-hour days at their grocery store to put me through college, who had scrimped and saved so I could attend MIT, who had taught me that success came from determination, not from marrying into it. The buzz of my phone interrupted my thoughts. A text from Zoe. "Did you see the investor bios I sent? The Westlake Group seems promising." I frowned. I hadn't received anything about investor bios. I scrolled through my emails and found nothing from Zoe except the financial reports. I called her immediately. "Morning, boss lady," she answered. The sounds of a coffee shop in the background. "Ready for today?" "I didn't get the investor bios you mentioned." "What?" "I sent them last night, right after the financial package. Check your sent items. Maybe there was a sending error." With a growing sense of unease, I opened my email sent folder. And there it was. The financial package, our company valuation, my personal investments, my grandmother's trust fund documents, all forwarded not just to our tax consultant as intended, but to the entire Bennett family email group. My blood ran cold. "Emma, you still there?" Zoe's voice seemed distant. "I have to call you back," I managed, ending the call. I stared at the screen, at the list of recipients. Diane, Bennett Igmail, Com, William, Bennett Benetech, Com, Vanessa. Murray Benetech, Com James. Murray Pacific Invest. Com and half a dozen other Bennett family members. I'd accidentally hit reply all to a family dinner invitation when forwarding Zoe's email. "What's wrong?" Ryan appeared in the doorway, hair tousled from sleep. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," I said, my voice hollow. "I just accidentally sent all of my financial records to your entire family." He frowned, not immediately grasping the significance. "Okay, that's not ideal for privacy reasons, but—" "Ryan." I turned the screen toward him. "Do you understand what this means? They're about to see exactly how successful Horizon is. My entire financial history. The inheritance from my grandmother that funded the startup." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Everything. Comprehension dawned on his face. "Everything that proves you're not a gold digger," I finished for him. "Everything that proves I never needed the Bennett fortune." Ryan sat heavily in the chair beside mine. "Maybe they haven't seen it yet. It's still early." As if on cue, my phone lit up with a text from Vanessa. "Interesting reading with my morning coffee. We need to talk. Brunch at Willows Harbor Cafe at 11? I showed Ryan the text. "Looks like they've seen it. You don't have to meet her." "Actually," I said, a strange calm settling over me, "I think I do." Willows Harbor Cafe sat on the Seattle waterfront, its large windows offering views of ferries gliding across Puget Sound. I chose a table in the corner, ordered a black coffee, and waited. I'd dressed deliberately that morning. A sleek navy, blazer over a crisp white blouse, my grandmother's jade pendant at my throat. Professional, composed, ready. Vanessa arrived 15 minutes late, a power move I recognized immediately. She slid into the seat across from me, sunglasses perched on her head, a look of bemused curiosity on her face. "Well," she said, waving to a server for coffee, "that was quite the email." I said nothing, waiting. 70 million, she continued, stirring sweetener into her coffee when it arrived. "I have to admit, Emma, I'm impressed. That's quite the little enterprise you've built." "Thank you," I replied evenly. "And that trust fund from your grandmother, 2 million isn't Bennett money, of course, but it's nothing to sneeze at." I took a slow sip of my coffee. "Why did you ask me here, Vanessa?" She set down her spoon, studying me with new eyes. "Honestly, I wanted to see if you were real." "Excuse me?" "The Emma in those financial records." She leaned forward, The savvy businesswoman who built a multi-million-dollar company. The woman who has more money in her personal accounts than my husband, the investment banker. That woman seems inconsistent with the Emma who has silently taken my jabs for 3 years. I met her gaze. Perhaps you've been jabbing at a person who doesn't exist. Perhaps. She tilted her head. Why didn't you ever say anything? About the success of your company? About your financial independence? Would you have believed me without seeing the numbers? Or would you have assumed I was lying to save face? She had the grace to look slightly abashed. Fair point. Besides, I continued, my worth isn't measured by my bank account, Vanessa. I shouldn't have to prove my financial value to be treated with respect. And yet, she said, gesturing vaguely, here we are, having this conversation only after I've seen proof of your net worth. Here we are, I agreed. A silence fell. Between us, filled only by the clinking of dishes and murmured conversations from nearby tables. So what happens now? I finally asked. Vanessa's perfectly manicured finger traced the rim of her coffee cup. That depends on what you want, I suppose. I want to be treated as Ryan's equal, not as someone who trapped him for his money. And if I've miscalculated about your motivations, then perhaps an apology would be appropriate. She laughed, not unkindly. You know that's not how the Bennetts operate. I do know, and that's the problem. The server returned to refill our cups. When she left, Vanessa's expression had shifted to something more calculating. There's something else we need to discuss, she said, her voice lower. Something in those financial records that concerns me. My guard immediately went up. What are you talking about? Your company's latest contract with the Department of Defense. I frowned. It's for accessibility software for their civilian administrative systems. What about it? Did you know, Vanessa said carefully, that Bennett Technologies bid on that same contract? I hadn't known. Ryan had never mentioned it. The DoD chose your startup over our established family company, she continued. Father is displeased. That's business, I said, though unease was beginning to pool in my stomach. Fair competition. Nothing is just business in this family. Emma, surely you've learned that by now. She stood, dropping bills on the table to cover her coffee. I may have been wrong about why you married Ryan, but that doesn't mean you aren't a threat to the Bennett legacy in other ways. As she walked away, I sat frozen, my coffee growing cold. The victory I'd felt at finally proving my worth dissolved into something more complicated, more dangerous. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. How did it go with Vanessa? I stared at the screen, unsure how to answer. Because what had seemed like a simple accident, a misfired email, had just revealed a much deeper conflict, one that went beyond petty family drama into the realm of business rivalry and Bennett pride. I gathered my things, leaving payment, beside Vanessa's. Outside, the Seattle rain had begun, a fine mist that beaded on my blazer. I looked out at the gray waters of Puget Sound, at the ferries carrying people to islands and peninsulas beyond. Something had shifted today. The email had changed everything, but not in the way I'd expected. I wasn't just fighting for respect anymore. I was fighting for my company, for everything I'd built. And the Bennetts, I was beginning to realize, played to win. That evening, rain lashed against the windows of our condo as I paced the living room. Ryan sat on the couch, his face a mask of concern, as I recounted my conversation with Vanessa. Why didn't you tell me Bennett Technologies bid on the DoD contract? I asked, trying to keep accusation from my voice. He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't know. I swear, Emma. I'm not involved in the government contracts division. But your father knew. Vanessa knew. They don't tell me everything. A flash of something, resentment, crossed his face. Contrary to what everyone seems to think, I'm not the favored son with special access. I stopped pacing. What does that mean? Ryan sighed, leaning back into the couch. Just because I have the Bennett name doesn't mean I'm in the inner circle, especially since he trailed off. Since you married me, I finished. He didn't deny it. I sat beside him, the anger draining out of me, replaced by a different kind of hurt. They've punished you too, haven't they, for choosing me? It doesn't matter, he said, taking my hand. I chose you. I'd choose you again. My phone buzzed with an email notification. Zoe again. Marcus Wong contacted me, she wrote. Says he has information about the Bennett bid on our DoD contract. Wants to meet tomorrow. Who's Marcus Wong? I asked Ryan. Bennett Technologies. Senior accountant. Been with the company for decades. He frowned. Why is he contacting Zoe? Apparently he has information about your family's bid on our contract. I showed him the email. Why would the family accountant reach out to my business partner? Ryan's frown deepened. That's unusual. Marcus is old school loyal. He wouldn't reach out to a competitor unless… Unless what? He shook his head. I don't know. But be careful, Emma. If my father finds out one of his employees is talking to you, what would he do? A chill that had nothing to do with the rain crept up my spine. Ryan met my eyes. The Bennetts didn't build an empire by being forgiving of disloyalty. I didn't sleep well that night, my dreams filled with shadowy figures and whispered threats. By morning, the rain had cleared, leaving the Seattle skyline crisp against a rare blue sky. I dressed carefully for my meeting with Marcus Wong, choosing an outfit that projected confidence, a charcoal pantsuit and my grandmother's jade pendant for luck. Be careful today, Ryan said as I prepared to leave, and call me after you meet. With Marcus. I will. He kissed me goodbye, his eyes troubled. As I rode the elevator down to the parking garage, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed between us. For 3 years, we'd lived in a careful balance, Ryan straddling the worlds of his demanding family and our marriage, me swallowing my pride to keep the peace. Now that balance was gone, and I wasn't sure what would replace it. The cafe where Marcus had suggested meeting was in Chinatown International District, far from Bennett Technologies' gleaming downtown headquarters. When I arrived, Zoe was already there, her bright red hair visible through the window as she sat at a corner table. Marcus Wong proved to be a slight man in his 60s, with wire-rimmed glasses and the precise movements of someone who has spent a lifetime being careful. He nodded politely as I sat down. Mrs. Bennett, he said, then immediately corrected himself. Ms. Chen, I should say. I understand you prefer your professional name. Emma is fine, I replied, noticing how he glanced nervously at the door. Mr. Wong. Marcus, please. Marcus, you wanted to discuss the Department of Defense contract? He adjusted his glasses. Not just the contract. There are irregularities you should be aware of, concerning how Bennett Technologies responded to losing the bid. Zoe leaned forward. What kind of irregularities? Marcus opened his briefcase, removing a thin folder. I've worked for the Bennett family for 32 years. I've managed their corporate accounting, their tax strategies. I've seen… He hesitated. I've seen how they handle competition. And how is that? I asked. By eliminating it. He slid the folder across the table. 3 days after the DoD announced Horizon Solutions had won the contract, William Bennett called an emergency board meeting. I was asked to prepare these financial projections. I opened the folder. Inside were spreadsheets detailing acquisition, scenarios, specifically the projected costs and benefits of acquiring Horizon Solutions. They want to buy my company? I looked up, confused. Marcus shook his head. Not exactly. These scenarios assume a hostile takeover, one that would allow them to absorb your technology while… He cleared his throat. while removing current leadership. Zoe swore under her breath. My father-in-law wants to force me out of my own company? The words felt surreal. It's not personal, Marcus said, though his expression suggested otherwise. It's about the Bennett legacy. William believes the DoD contract should have been theirs. In his mind, he's simply correcting a mistake by destroying what I've built. Marcus nodded solemnly. I'm afraid so. Why are you telling us this? Zoe asked, suspicion evident in her voice. You've worked for them for decades. The older man's gaze dropped to the table. My wife's family owned a small electronics company in Tacoma. 20 years ago, they competed with Bennett Technologies for a major contract. They won. He looked up, his eyes tired behind his glasses. A month later, rumors began circulating about quality issues with their products, then about financial improprieties. None of it was true, but it didn't matter. They lost customers, investors pulled out. Within a year, they were bankrupt. And Bennett Technologies? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Acquired their patents and client list for pennies on the dollar. The cafe seemed suddenly too warm, too crowded. Are you saying they deliberately sabotaged your wife's family business? I couldn't prove it then, but I've spent 20 years watching similar patterns. Companies that challenge Bennett Technologies tend to face misfortunes. Like my parents' grocery store, I whispered, a terrible suspicion forming. Marcus frowned. What about their store? 3 years ago, right after Ryan and I got engaged, their building was condemned for code violations. Violations that hadn't been flagged in 25 years of inspections. I swallowed hard. They lost everything. Had to start over in a smaller location, with higher rent. Marcus removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. I can't say for certain, but the timing is consistent with their methods. Zoe reached for my hand under the table, squeezing it. There's more, Marcus continued, his voice lower. William has scheduled meetings with 3 of your largest investors, and he's filed a patent challenge against your core technology. That's absurd, Zoe said. Our patents are solid. The challenge doesn't need to succeed. It just needs to create doubt. To delay your ability to fulfill the DoD contract. My mind raced, connecting dots I'd never thought to connect before. The subtle sabotage of my parents' business. The years of being dismissed as a gold digger, not just out of snobbery, but as a means of undermining my credibility as a businesswoman. Why now? I asked. They've known about Horizon for years. Why target us so aggressively now? The DoD contract changed things, Marcus replied. It's not just about money. It's about William's pride, about the Bennett name. And Ryan? I could barely bring myself to ask. Does he know about any of this? Marcus hesitated. Ryan occupies a complicated position in the family. William has always found him too soft, too idealistic. His role in the company has been deliberately limited. Which wasn't quite an answer. What should we do? Zoe asked, her usual confidence shaken. Marcus closed his briefcase. Protect yourselves, your company, your data. He stood, preparing to leave. And Ms. Chen, be careful at home. The Bennetts don't separate family from business. After he left, Zoe and I sat in stunned silence. Do you think Ryan knows? She finally asked. I stared out the window at the bustling street. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. That night, I didn't go home. I couldn't face Ryan, not until I had processed what I'd learned. Not until I was sure where he stood. Instead, I checked into a downtown hotel and called my parents. Emma? My mother's voice carried the slight accent that had grown more pronounced since they'd lost their original store. Is everything okay? I need to ask you something, Mom, about the code violations that closed your store. I took a deep breath. Did anyone from Bennett Technologies ever contact you? Ever show interest in your property? The silence that followed told me everything. How did you know? She finally asked. My heart sank. What happened? A few months after you and Ryan got engaged, a man came to the store. He said he represented a development company that wanted to buy the entire block. We told him we weren't interested in selling. The store was our life. And then the code violations started. Yes. Her voice grew stronger, indignant even. Now. Violations no one had ever mentioned before. Electrical issues, structural problems. Things that would have cost more to fix than we had. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, though I already knew. You were happy, Emma. In love. We didn't want to spoil that. A pause. And we couldn't prove anything. But Marcus could. Marcus had the records, the patterns, the inside knowledge of how the Bennetts operated. I'm going to make this right, Mom. I promise. After we hung up, I sat on the hotel bed, staring at my phone. 12 missed calls from Ryan, 20 text messages, growing increasingly worried. Finally, I called him back. Emma, where are you? His voice was frantic. I've been worried sick. I needed some time to think, I said, measuring my words. Carefully. I know about what your family did to my parents' store. Silence. Then, what are you talking about? The mysterious code violations, the timing right after we got engaged. I fought to keep my voice steady. And now they're planning to do the same to my company. A hostile takeover. Patent challenges. Meetings with my investors. Emma, I don't know anything about. Did you know? I cut him off. That's all I need to know right now. Did you know what your family was planning? The pause was too long. I heard rumors, he finally admitted, about Dad meeting with lawyers to discuss Horizon, but I didn't know the details. And you didn't think to warn me? I didn't think it was serious. Dad is always making noise about competitors. I never thought He trailed off. Target your wife? Destroy her parents' livelihood? Emma, please, come home. We can figure this out together. I closed my eyes, suddenly exhausted. I can't. Not tonight. Where are you? I'll come. To you. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. I need space, Ryan. I need to think. After we hung up, I lay back on the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling. The weight of everything I'd learned pressed down on me. About the Bennetts, about my parents' store, about the danger to my company, about Ryan. Had he really been in the dark about his family's tactics? Or had he been complicit all along, playing the role of the sympathetic husband while his family systematically undermined me? I didn't know what to believe anymore. But as I drifted into an uneasy sleep, one thing became clear. I wasn't going to wait around to be destroyed. If the Bennetts wanted a fight, they were going to get one, and it would start tomorrow. The morning light filtered through the hotel curtains as I awoke, momentarily disoriented before remembering why I wasn't at home. My phone showed 7. New missed calls from Ryan, but there was another message that caught my attention, a text from Marcus Wong. William called emergency board meeting. 10 a.m. today. Patent challenge filing expedited. I sat up, fully alert now. They were moving faster than I'd expected. I called Zoe immediately. I was just about to call you, she said, her voice tense. 3 of our investors emailed this morning requesting urgent meetings, all scheduled for today. William Bennett is behind it, I said, already moving to get dressed. We need to secure our data, our patents, everything. Already on it. I've got the tech team implementing security protocols. And Emma? Daniel Rivera from Westlake Group still wants to meet. Says he has something important to discuss. Daniel Rivera. the potential investor we were supposed to meet before all this began. Set it up. And Zoe, don't go to the office. Today. Work remotely. I don't trust the Bennetts not to show up there. After a quick shower, I dressed in the same clothes from yesterday, wishing I had something fresh but unwilling to return home yet. As I gathered my things, my phone rang again. Ryan. This time, I answered. "Where are you?" he demanded, worry and frustration evident in his voice. "I've been up all night." I needed space to think. I kept my tone neutral, giving nothing away. "Emma, whatever you think my family is doing, I'm not part of it. You have to believe me." "Do I?" I countered, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Your father is filing an expedited patent challenge against my company today. He's meeting with my investors. Tell me you knew nothing about that." A pause. "I heard something about a patent review. I didn't know it was against Horizon." "Emma, please just tell me where you are. We can figure this out together." "Can we? Because right now it feels like I'm fighting your entire family alone." "You're not alone. You have me." His voice softened. "At least you do if you'll let me help." I closed my eyes, torn between the love I still felt for him and the betrayal that seemed to surround me. "Meet me at Westlake Center in an hour. There's a cafe on the 3rd level. I'll be there." After hanging up, I texted Marcus, thanking him for the warning and asking for any other information he could provide about the patent challenge. His reply was swift. "Be careful. William suspects a leak. Security, reviewing all communications." A chill ran through me. If William discovered Marcus had been helping me, the accountant's 32-year career would be over. Possibly worse, given what I now knew about how the Bennetts handled perceived enemies. I checked out of the hotel and caught a rideshare to Westlake Center, a downtown shopping complex. The cafe was busy with morning customers, providing the anonymity I wanted. I chose a table with a view of the entrance and ordered a latte, my mind racing with possible strategies. Ryan arrived precisely on time, looking haggard in a way I'd rarely seen him. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot, from lack of sleep. He scanned the cafe, relief washing over his face when he spotted me. "Emma," he breathed, sliding into the seat across from me. He reached for my hand, but I pulled back slightly. The hurt in his eyes was immediate. "I need answers, Ryan. Real ones." He nodded. "I know, and I'll tell you everything I know. But first, are you okay? Where did you stay last night?" "I'm fine. I got a hotel room." I took a sip of my latte, studying him over the rim. "Now, tell me what you know about your father's plans for Horizon." Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "Not much, until this morning. After you called, I went to the office early. Demanded to see the patent filings. And? It's bad, Emma. They're claiming your core accessibility algorithm infringes on Bennett Technologies' intellectual property. It's a stretch, but with enough expensive lawyers." He trailed off. "It could create problems," I finished. "Delay the DoD contract fulfillment. Scare off investors." "Yes." He looked miserable. "I tried to talk to Dad. He shut me down. Said it was just business and I needed to remember where my loyalties lie." "And where do they lie, Ryan?" His eyes met mine. "With you. Always with you." He reached for my hand again, and this time I let him take it. "Emma, I swear I didn't know about this until it was already in motion, and I definitely didn't know about your parents' store. That's unforgivable." I studied his face, looking for any sign of deception. All I saw was anguish and determination. "I believe you," I said finally. "But that doesn't solve our problem. Your father is trying to destroy my company. I know, and I'm going to help you stop him." My phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. "Meeting with Rivera set for noon. His office." "I have to go. I told Ryan, gathering my things. I have a meeting with a potential investor. Let me come with you. I hesitated. Having Ryan present could send a powerful message that the Bennett heir himself stood against his family's actions. But it could also backfire if Daniel Rivera thought I needed my husband to fight my battles. Not this time, I decided. I need to handle this myself, but I do need you to do something else. Anything. Find out what else your father is planning. And, I lowered my voice, make sure Marcus Wong is safe. He's taking a huge risk helping us. Ryan nodded. I'll do what I can. But be careful, Emma. When Dad feels challenged, he can be ruthless. So can I replied, standing up. When everything I've built is at stake. Daniel Rivera's office occupied the top floor of a sleek tower overlooking Elliott Bay. Westlake. Group had a reputation for funding innovative tech with social impact, exactly the kind of investor Horizon Solutions needed. As I rode the elevator up, I rehearsed my pitch, trying to focus on the business opportunity rather than the battle. With the Bennetts. Rivera proved to be younger than I expected, perhaps in his early 40s, with warm brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled. His office was minimalist but comfortable, with stunning views of the water. Ms. Chen, he greeted me, shaking my hand firmly. Thank you for making time on such short notice. Mr. Rivera, I understand you wanted to discuss a potential investment in Horizon Solutions. Please, call me Daniel. And yes, I'm very interested in your company, particularly your accessibility software. He gestured for me to sit. But I suspect we have another matter to discuss first. My guard immediately went up. What matter is that? William Bennett called me this morning. He leaned back in his chair. Suggested I should reconsider any investment in Horizon Solutions due to pending intellectual property issues. Of course he had. And what did you tell him? A smile played at the corner of Rivera's mouth. That I make my own investment decisions based on my own due diligence. He studied me thoughtfully. The Bennetts are powerful enemies to make, Ms. Chen. I didn't make them my enemies, I replied evenly. They chose that role when they targeted my company. Because of the DoD contract? Partially. I hesitated, then decided on complete honesty. And partially because I married Ryan Bennett, despite not fitting their idea of a suitable daughter-in-law. Rivera nodded slowly. I've dealt with the Bennett family for years. William is traditional in his approach to both business and family. Traditional is a polite way of putting it. That earned me a genuine laugh. Indeed. Well, Ms. Chen, here's my position. I don't care about family drama. I care about sound investments. And from everything I've seen, Horizon Solutions is exactly that. Hope flickered within me. Despite the patent challenge? Patent challenges are a dime a dozen in tech. Most are nuisance filings that eventually get dismissed. He leaned forward, elbows on his desk. What interests me is how you're going to respond to it, to all of this. It was a test, I realized. He wanted to see if I would crumble under pressure or fight back. With everything I have, I said, meeting his gaze steadily. Horizon isn't just a company to me, Mr. Rivera. It's built on the belief that technology should be accessible to everyone. We're making digital spaces navigable for people who have been excluded. That mission matters too much to let it be destroyed by corporate bullying tactics. Even when those tactics come from your husband's family? Especially then. I straightened in my chair. I built Horizon before I met Ryan. I'll defend it regardless of my personal relationships. Rivera studied me for a long moment, then nodded as if coming to a decision. Westlake Group is prepared to offer $10 million in funding, with an option for an additional $5 million in 6 months, contingent on meeting agreed-upon milestones. I blinked, thrown by the sudden shift. That's generous. It's strategic, he corrected. Your DoD contract proves the government sees value in your technology. And frankly, the fact that Bennett Technologies is trying to squash you suggests they see you as a genuine threat. A smile spread across his face. I like betting on the companies the giants are afraid of. There is one condition, he continued, his expression growing serious. This investment requires absolute discretion until the paperwork is finalized. The moment William Bennett learns about it, he'll try to interfere. Understood. I extended my hand. Thank you for your faith in Horizon. As we shook hands, my phone buzzed insistently in my pocket. I ignored it until I had left Rivera's office, then checked the screen. 5 missed calls from Ryan, and one text that made my blood run cold. Emergency at office. Zoe arrested. Come now. I rushed to Horizon's headquarters, heart pounding. Outside our building, a police car was just pulling away. Inside, the reception area was eerily quiet, our usually bustling workspace subdued. Ryan paced near the elevator, looking up as I entered. What happened? I demanded. Where's Zoe? They took her to the downtown precinct, he said, guiding me toward my office. Computer fraud charges. Emma, they're saying she hacked into Bennett Technologies' servers. That's absurd. Zoe couldn't do that. I know. He closed my office door behind us. It's a setup. Dad's work. Has to be. I sank into my chair, trying to process this new attack. How? How could they possibly frame her for something like that? Ryan ran a hand through his hair. I don't know the details yet, but the police said they had evidence of unauthorized access from an IP address linked to Zoe's home computer. They've seized her laptop and phone. My mind raced, trying to connect the dots. Then it hit me. The financial records. When I accidentally sent them to your family, anyone who opened that email would have had their device connect to our company's secure server to download the attachments. And if someone wanted to make it look like hacking, they could use that connection as evidence. I stood up, anger rising. Zoe is being set up because of my mistake. It's not your fault, Emma. This is my father's doing. His way of neutralizing what he sees as a threat. Ryan's jaw tightened. I should have seen this coming. We need to help her. Get her a lawyer. Already done. I called Cameron Hayes, best tech lawyer in Seattle. I looked at him in surprise. You did? Of course. His expression softened. Emma, I meant what I said. I'm on your side. On Horizon's side. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe I wasn't fighting alone after all. Thank you, I said quietly. There's something else. Ryan lowered his voice. Marcus sent me copies of the patent challenge documents. There's a fatal flaw in their argument. Your algorithm may look similar to a Bennett Technologies patent on the surface, but the underlying approach is completely different. Can we prove that? With the right technical expert, yes. But we need to move fast. Dad's planning to announce the patent challenge at the Seattle Tech Alliance dinner tomorrow night. The STA dinner, an annual gathering of the city's tech elite. The perfect venue for William Bennett to publicly cast doubt on Horizon's integrity in front of potential partners, investors, and clients. Then we'll be there too, I decided. And we'll be ready. Emma, that might not be wise. Dad will have the home court advantage. Most of those people have been in his orbit for decades. All the more reason to show up. I met his gaze. I'm tired of hiding, Ryan. Tired of playing defense. It's time we took control of this narrative. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but we do this together. Together, I agreed. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activity. We met with Cameron Hayes, who assured us that the charges against Zoe were flimsy at best and would likely be dropped once he presented evidence of the setup. We coordinated with our technical team to prepare a comprehensive defense of our patent. and I called Daniel Rivera to brief him on the latest developments. "Not surprised," Rivera said when I told him about Zoe's arrest. "Classic diversionary tactic. Create a scandal to distract from the real issue, that their patent challenge has no merit." "Will this affect your investment decision?" I asked, holding my breath. "Not at all. In fact, it confirms my assessment that you're a genuine threat to their business model." I could hear the smile in his voice. "Just handle the STA dinner carefully. William Bennett has a lot of allies in that room." By evening, exhaustion had set in. Ryan suggested we both go home, our home, to rest and prepare for the battle ahead. I hesitated, still raw from the revelations about his family. "Emma," he said softly, "I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please come home. We're stronger together than apart." Looking at him, at the genuine concern in his eyes, the determination in his stance, I found myself nodding. "Okay. But Ryan? No more secrets. No more divided loyalties. If we're going to fight your family together, I need to know you're all in." "All in," he promised. That night, as we prepared dinner in our condo kitchen, a simple pasta, neither of us having the energy for anything elaborate, the silence between us gradually softened. Not quite comfortable yet, but no longer charged with accusation. "Tell me about your meeting with Rivera," Ryan said as we sat down to eat. I filled him in on Westlake Group's investment offer, watching his face carefully as I spoke. There was no jealousy, no resentment, only genuine pleasure at my success. "That's fantastic, Emma. Rivera's backing carries serious weight in the tech community, assuming your father doesn't somehow interfere before the deal is finalized." Ryan twirled pasta around his fork, thoughtful. "Dad's powerful, but he's not omnipotent, and he doesn't know everything, despite what he'd like people to believe." "What do you mean?" He set down his fork. "There's something I haven't told you. Something about why Dad is so fixated on maintaining control, on eliminating any perceived threat to the Bennett legacy." I waited, sensing we were approaching a truth that might explain much of what had happened. "Bennett Technologies isn't as solid as everyone thinks," Ryan said finally. "The company has been losing market share for years. Dad's management style, authoritarian, resistant to innovation, worked in the 90s and early 2000s. It doesn't work now. But they're still one of the largest tech hardware companies in the Pacific Northwest. On paper, yes, but our last 3 product launches have underperformed. Our stock is being propped up by reputation and momentum, not actual growth." He met my eyes. The DoD contract would have been a lifeline, a way to right the ship without admitting to shareholders that we're struggling. The revelation shifted my understanding of everything that had happened. William Bennett's aggressive tactics weren't just about pride or family legacy. They were about survival. "That's why he's coming after Horizon so hard," I said slowly. "He's desperate." Ryan nodded. "And desperate men are dangerous, especially men like my father who've never faced failure before." "Does Vanessa know about the company's struggles?" "Oh, she knows. That's why she's been so vicious toward you. She's terrified of losing her position, her status. The Bennett name is all she has." I pushed my plate away, appetite gone. "So what's our next move?" "Tomorrow, we prepare our counter-narrative, the story we want to tell at the STA dinner." Ryan reached across the table, taking my hand. "And Emma? We need to be ready for whatever my father throws at us. Because he will have something planned." "I know." I squeezed his hand. "But so will we." Later, as we prepared for bed, I found myself standing before the floor-to-ceiling windows of our bedroom, looking out at the Seattle skyline. The space. Needle was lit up against the night sky, boats twinkled on Elliott Bay, and somewhere in one of those gleaming towers, William Bennett was plotting his next move against me. Ryan came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. Penny, for your thoughts. I was just thinking about how much I love this city, how it's become home. I leaned back against him. And how I'm not going to let anyone take what I've built here away from me. You won't have to. He pressed a kiss to my temple. Tomorrow we show my family exactly who they're dealing with. And who is that? I asked, turning in his arms to face him. A slow smile spread across his face. A brilliant, unstoppable force named Emma Chen, a woman who built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing but her grandmother's trust fund and her own genius. A woman who's about to teach William Bennett that he picked the wrong fight. For the first time in days, I felt myself truly smile. I like the sound of that. That night, I slept better than I had since the accidental email. Whatever happened at the STA dinner, I knew I wouldn't be facing it alone. Morning brought a call from Cameron Hayes. Zoe had been released. The charges dropped due to insufficient evidence. A win, but a telling one. William Bennett had backed off too easily, which suggested the arrest had been merely a distraction, not the main attack. He's saving his ammunition for tonight, Ryan agreed when I shared my concern. The patent challenge announcement is his real play. We spent the day preparing. I met with our technical team, reviewing every aspect of our algorithm to confirm it didn't infringe on any Bennett Technologies patent. Ryan worked his contacts, quietly briefing key industry figures who would be at the dinner on what to expect. By late afternoon, we had our strategy in place. Now we just needed to execute it. I chose my outfit carefully, a sleek burgundy dress that projected confidence without ostentation, paired with my grandmother's jade pendant for luck. Ryan wore a charcoal suit with no tie, a subtle break from the formal Bennett image. Ready? He asked as our car approached the downtown hotel where the STA dinner was being held. I took a deep breath. Ready. The grand ballroom was all ready, filled with Seattle's tech elite, founders, executives, investors, and media. Conversations hummed beneath crystal chandeliers, glasses clinked, and strategically important connections were being made in every corner. As we entered, I felt eyes turn toward us. News of the Bennett Technologies patent challenge had clearly already begun circulating through industry gossip channels. Ryan placed a protective hand at the small of my back, guiding me through the crowd. Emma, Ryan. Vanessa's voice cut through the ambient noise as she approached, glass of champagne in hand. She wore a stunning black gown that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. I'm surprised to see you both here. Why would that be surprising? I asked pleasantly. The STA dinner is an important industry event. Horizon Solutions is a growing force in Seattle tech. Her smile tightened. Yes? Well, growing companies can be so vulnerable. One never knows what challenges might arise. Some challenges are more legitimate than others, Ryan replied, his tone matching his sister's in false pleasantry. Vanessa's gaze flicked between us, clearly assessing the united front we presented. Whatever she saw made her smile falter, slightly. Father wants to speak with you, she told Ryan, before his announcement. I'm sure he does, Ryan said evenly. But right now, I'm with my wife. If Dad wants to talk, he can find us both. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. You're making a mistake, Ryan. A serious one. No, he replied. For the first time in a long time, I'm doing exactly what I should have been doing all along. He placed a hand on my waist, standing with the woman I love. As Vanessa stalked away, I turned to Ryan in surprise. That was decisive. A hint of a smile touched his lips. Felt good, actually. We made our way through the crowd, stopping to chat with various industry contacts. I noted with interest that while some people seemed nervous about being seen with us, clearly afraid of William Bennett's reaction, others made a point of engaging warmly, perhaps betting that the winds were shifting. Daniel Rivera was among, the latter approaching us with a genuine smile. Emma, Ryan, Good to see you both. He shook Ryan's hand firmly. Bold move, showing up tonight. We're not hiding, I replied. Horizon has nothing to be ashamed of. Glad to hear it, because… Rivera broke off, glancing over my shoulder. Heads up, the patriarch approaches. I turned to see William Bennett cutting through the crowd toward us, his expression thunderous. Tall and imposing, even in his 70s, he radiated the cold authority that had built an empire, and I now knew maintained it through fear and manipulation. Ryan, he said sharply when he reached us, barely acknowledging my presence. A word. Now. Whatever you have to say to me, Dad, you can say in front of Emma. Ryan's voice was calm, but firm. And Daniel, if he doesn't mind. William's jaw tightened. This is family business. No, I interjected. It's industry business. Your patent challenge against my company isn't a family matter, Mr. Bennett. It's a public one, which I understand you plan to announce tonight. William's cold gaze finally shifted to me. You're interfering in things you don't understand, young lady. I understand perfectly, I replied, keeping my voice level. I understand that Bennett Technologies lost the DoD contract because Horizon's technology is superior. I understand that instead of competing fairly, you're attempting to destroy a legitimate competitor through baseless legal challenges and behind-the-scenes manipulation. A murmur rippled through the nearby guests as my words carried. William noticed, his expression darkening further. Your company, he said, his voice dangerously low, has built its success on intellectual property that rightfully belongs to Bennett Technologies. The patent challenge will prove that. No, it won't, Ryan cut in, because Emma's algorithm is entirely original. You know that, Dad. The technical assessment confirmed it. William's gaze snapped to his son. You've seen the assessment? I've seen everything, Ryan replied, including the financial projections for a hostile takeover of Horizon, the plans to approach Emma's investors, even the setup that led to Zoe Parker's wrongful arrest. The crowd around us had grown silent, attention fixed on the drama unfolding. William took a step closer to Ryan, lowering his voice. You're choosing her company over your family legacy? Over everything we've built? I'm choosing integrity, Ryan replied. Something that used to be part of the Bennett legacy, before. You decided winning at all costs was more important. A flash of genuine hurt crossed William's face, quickly replaced by cold anger. You'll regret this decision. No, Dad, Ryan said quietly. The only thing I regret is not standing up to you sooner, like when you targeted Emma's parents' grocery store after we got engaged. Gasps from the onlookers confirmed that this revelation was landing exactly as we'd hoped. William's face flushed with anger, and perhaps, I thought, a hint of shame. This discussion is over, he snapped, turning to leave. Actually, I called after him, it's just beginning. Because shortly before your planned announcement tonight, every journalist in this room will receive documentation proving that your patent challenge is baseless. They'll also receive evidence of how Bennett Technologies has systematically targeted and destroyed smaller competitors over the years. I stepped forward, including the story of my parents' grocery store. William froze, then slowly turned back to face me. You're bluffing. Am I? I maintained eye contact, refusing to be intimidated. Marcus Wong has been very helpful in piecing together the Bennett family's business tactics over the years. The mention of his longtime accountant made William pale slightly. Marcus wouldn't betray decades of loyalty. He didn't see it as betrayal, I replied. He saw it as finally doing the right thing. The standoff stretched for several tense seconds. Then, unexpectedly, Daniel Rivera stepped forward. William, he said, his tone conciliatory but firm, perhaps we could find a more productive resolution to this situation. William's gaze shifted to Rivera, suspicion evident. What kind of resolution? One that preserves reputations on all sides. Rivera glanced between us. I've just finalized a significant investment in Horizon Solutions. What if, instead of a patent challenge, we discussed a strategic partnership between Bennett Technologies and Horizon? Hardware meets innovative software, a collaboration that could strengthen both companies. It was a lifeline, one that would allow William to save face while backing down from his attack. Ryan and I had discussed this possibility earlier, agreeing it might be the optimal outcome if William could be persuaded to see reason. A partnership, William repeated, his tone neutral but considering. Equal partners, I specified, with Horizon maintaining its independence and leadership. William's eyes narrowed as he assessed me anew. No longer just the gold-digging outsider, but a business force to be reckoned with, one with enough leverage to demand terms. We can discuss possibilities, he said finally, after the dinner. It wasn't a surrender, but it was a retreat from open warfare. A start. As William walked away, the crowd around us resumed their conversations, though now with an electric energy. The confrontation had been witnessed by dozens of industry influencers. Already, the narrative was shifting. Ryan squeezed my hand. You were magnificent. We both were, I replied, feeling the tension slowly drain from my shoulders. Though this isn't over yet. No, he agreed. But for the first time, I think we might actually find a way through this that doesn't end in total destruction for someone. Daniel Rivera raised his champagne glass in a subtle toast. To new beginnings, and partnerships built on respect rather than fear. I clinked my glass against his, then Ryan's. I'll drink to that. As dinner was announced and guests began moving toward their tables, I caught sight of Vanessa watching us from across the room. Her expression was unreadable, but I sensed something had shifted there too. Perhaps the realization that the narrative she'd clung to, of me as the fortune-hunting outsider, had been irreparably shattered. What would happen after tonight, I couldn't say for certain. The partnership discussions would be complex and likely contentious. William Bennett wouldn't transform overnight from cutthroat competitor to collaborative partner. Vanessa wouldn't suddenly embrace me as a sister. But as Ryan and I took our seats at the dinner, his hand warm in mine beneath the table, I felt something I hadn't felt since this ordeal began. Hope. Not just that my company would survive, but that perhaps, just perhaps, we could build something better from the ashes of this conflict. Something built on truth, rather than lies and manipulations. On mutual respect, rather than power and intimidation. On real family values, not just the appearance of them. The battle wasn't over. But tonight, at least, I had won a critical victory. And looking at Ryan beside me, I knew I wouldn't be fighting alone anymore. The Bennett Lake House emerged from the tree line as Ryan guided his car down the winding private drive. Modernist architecture of glass and cedar stretched across prime Lake Washington shoreline, its windows reflecting the setting sun in fiery orange. My stomach tightened as we approached, the partnership document secure in my leather portfolio. Remember, we don't agree to anything tonight without time to review, I said, breaking the tense silence that had settled between us during the drive. Ryan nodded, reaching over to squeeze my hand. This is just a conversation. Nothing gets signed. The gravel crunched beneath our tires as we pulled up to the front entrance, where William Bennett stood waiting, his imposing figure framed by the massive doorway. Unlike his usual corporate attire, he wore casual slacks and a cashmere sweater, a calculated informality that somehow made him more intimidating rather than less. Right on time, he noted as we exited the car, his tone giving away nothing. Ryan moved to my side, his hand finding the small of my back, a gesture not lost on his father, whose eyes narrowed slightly before he turned to lead us inside. Your mother's on the terrace. The lake house interior was a study in refined minimalism, open spaces, museum-quality art, and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the water view. Every element spoke of wealth accumulated over generations, of power wielded with confidence. This was William Bennett's sanctuary, the heart of his domain, and he had invited us in for a purpose. Diane Bennett sat at a glass table on the terrace, a bottle of wine already open beside 3 empty glasses. She rose as we approached, her silk blouse catching the golden hour light. "Emma, Ryan." Her smile was practiced, polite. "Thank you for coming." I accepted her air kiss, noting the subtle appraisal in her eyes. Since the STA dinner confrontation, something had shifted. Where once she had looked through me, now she was seeing me, perhaps for the first time. "Lovely evening," I commented, taking the seat Ryan pulled out for me. "Thank you for inviting us." "Family should make time for family," William stated, taking his position at the head of the table as he poured wine into each glass. "Especially when there are misunderstandings to address." Ryan tensed beside me. "Is that what you call attempting to destroy Emma's company, Dad? A misunderstanding?" William's expression remained impassive as he passed the wine glasses around. "I call it business, Ryan. Something I had hoped you would eventually understand." His gaze shifted to me. "However, it seems I underestimated both your wife and her company's resilience." "You certainly did," I agreed, meeting his gaze with matched intensity. A ghost of a smile crossed William's face before disappearing. "Direct. I can appreciate that, even when it's inconvenient." He lifted his glass. "To new understandings." The toast hung in the air, loaded with unspoken implications. After a moment's hesitation, I raised my glass as well. To honest communication, finally. We drank, the expensive wine tasting of tension and wary possibility. "I understand you've brought a partnership proposal," William said, nodding toward my portfolio. "We have." I placed my hand protectively over the leather case. "But before we discuss business arrangements, I think we need to address the personal matters that brought us to this point." Diane shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Perhaps business would be easier terrain." "No," I interrupted, surprising even myself with my directness. "For 3 years, I've been treated as an outsider in this family, called a gold digger behind my back and sometimes to my face. My parents' business was targeted after Ryan and I became engaged. And most recently, my company, which I built from the ground up, was nearly destroyed through underhanded tactics." I set my wine glass down. "Those aren't business matters, Mrs. Bennett. They're personal attacks." The terrace fell silent except for the gentle lapping of lake water against the shore below. Ryan's hand found mine beneath the table, a silent show of support. William studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, he sighed. "You're right." The simple acknowledgement hung in the air between us, startling in its directness. "When Ryan told us he was dating a young woman from Rainier Valley whose parents ran a grocery store, I made assumptions," William continued. "When he announced your engagement 6 months later, I made more assumptions. Assumptions that, it seems, were incorrect." "They were worse than incorrect," Ryan interjected. "They were harmful. Deliberately so." William's jaw tightened. "I've spent my life protecting what we've built. The Bennett name stands for something in this city, in this industry." "And you thought I threatened that?" I said. Not a question, but a statement. "Yes." William set down his glass. "Until I saw those financial records. Until I witnessed how you handled yourself at the STA dinner." A reluctant respect entered his voice. "You're not what I expected, Emma Chen." "I never claimed to be anything other than who I am," I replied. "You just never bothered to find out who that was." "Dad," Ryan said, his voice steady. "What happened to Mom's store wasn't business. It was vindictive and cruel." A flicker of discomfort crossed William's face. "The property acquisition was a business decision. The timing was unfortunate." "The timing was deliberate," I countered. "Just like the patent challenge. Just like approaching my investors." just like having Zoe arrested on false charges. Diane paled visibly at this last accusation, her eyes darting to her husband. William, you didn't… What's done is done. William cut her off, his tone sharpening. The question now is how we move forward. I pulled the partnership document from my portfolio and placed it on the table. This is our proposal. A partnership that maintains Horizon's independence while allowing for strategic collaboration with Bennett Technologies. Both companies benefit, but neither surrenders control. William made no move to take the document. And if I were to suggest a counter-proposal, one where Bennett Technologies acquires a controlling interest in Horizon? Then this dinner would be over, I replied simply. Even if the offer were extremely generous? My company isn't for sale, Mr. Bennett. Not at any price. He studied me, the calculation evident in his eyes. You're very young to be so absolute in your positions. And you're very experienced to be so wrong about mine, I countered. A startled laugh escaped Diane, quickly muffled behind her hand. William shot her a look before turning back to me. You have conviction. I'll grant you that. He finally reached for the document. Let's see what you're proposing. As William reviewed our partnership terms, Diane rose to check on dinner with the private chef they'd hired for the evening. Ryan excused himself to use the restroom, leaving me momentarily alone with my father-in-law. You've structured this very carefully, William observed without looking up from the document. Almost as if you don't trust me. I don't, I said simply. He glanced up, something like approval in his expression. Good. Trust is earned, not given, especially in business. He set the proposal aside. Your company has potential, Emma. More than I initially recognized. Horizon is revolutionizing digital accessibility. Our technology has applications far beyond what Bennett Technologies has explored. Yes, I see that now. William leaned back in his chair, studying me, with new eyes. Which makes me wonder why you'd consider any partnership with us at all, given our history. The question surprised me with its directness. Because despite everything, I believe in pragmatic solutions. Bennett Technologies has manufacturing capabilities and distribution networks that would take Horizon years to build independently. A strategic partnership benefits both companies. And Ryan? William asked. Where does he factor into this pragmatic equation? Ryan is my husband. That's separate from business. Is it? William raised an eyebrow. He's also a Bennett, heir to the company that's been his family's legacy for generations. A legacy you've been keeping him from, I pointed out. Ryan has brilliant ideas for modernizing Bennett Technologies, but you've marginalized him at every turn. William's expression clouded. Ryan lacks the necessary ruthlessness, I finished for him. The willingness to destroy competitors, rather than outperform them. You're right. That's not who he is. This industry doesn't reward softness. No, it rewards innovation. Something Bennett Technologies has been increasingly lacking under your leadership. The words landed like a slap. William's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, Ryan returned to the terrace. Everything okay out here? He asked, sensing the tension. Your wife and I were having a frank discussion about leadership styles, William replied, his tone controlled but clipped. Ryan reclaimed his seat beside me. Emma has some strong opinions on the subject, most of which I share. William's gaze shifted between us, reassessing. Yes, I'm beginning to see that. Diane returned to announce dinner was ready, guiding us to the formal dining room where the chef had prepared an elaborate meal. As we were seated, William at the head of the table, Diane at the foot, Ryan and I across from each other along the sides, I couldn't help but note the symbolic positioning. Even here, in a supposed peace negotiation, William maintained his position of power. Conversation during the first course remained superficial. Comments about the food, the weather, Safe topics that avoided the underlying tensions. It wasn't until the main course was served that William steered the discussion back to business. "I've reviewed your proposal," he said, addressing me directly. "It has merit, but requires adjustment. Bennett Technologies needs greater equity in the arrangement." "The equity split reflects the relative contributions of each company," I replied. "Horizon's technology is the innovative driver in this partnership." "Innovation without scale is merely invention," William countered. "Bennett Technologies provides the infrastructure to transform your software from promising to dominant." Ryan set down his fork. "Dad, Horizon doesn't need Bennett Technologies to succeed. They've already proven that. This partnership should be viewed as mutually beneficial, not as Bennett Technologies doing Horizon a favor." William's eyes narrowed at his son's intervention. "You seem to have forgotten which company has sustained our family for generations." "I haven't forgotten anything," Ryan replied evenly, "including how Bennett Technologies became dominant in the first place by acquiring or destroying smaller competitors with promising technology." The accusation hung heavy in the air. Diane looked down at her plate, uncomfortable with the confrontation. William's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. "Business isn't for the faint of heart," he said finally. "The strategies that built Bennett Technologies may seem aggressive by today's standards, but they were effective." "We're being the operative word," I interjected. "Those tactics won't work in today's market. And they certainly won't work against Horizon." William studied me, something shifting in his expression. "You're very confident for someone facing a company with Bennett's resources." "I'm confident because I know exactly what Horizon has to offer, and what we're prepared to do if this partnership doesn't materialize." I met his gaze steadily. "We have Rivera's investment commitment. We have the DoD contract. And as of this morning, we have documentation of every questionable business practice Bennett Technologies has employed over the past decade, courtesy of Marcus Wong." William's hand tightened around his wine glass. "Marcus has been dealt with." A chill ran through me. "What does that mean?" "It means he's no longer employed by Bennett Technologies." William's tone was dismissive. "Breach of confidentiality has consequences." "As does corporate sabotage," Ryan countered, his voice hardening. "Everything Marcus provided is backed up, duplicated, and held in secure locations. If anything happens to him, or if you pursue any further action against Horizon or Emma's family, those documents go public." Diane let out a small gasp. "Ryan, surely you wouldn't—" "I would," he said firmly. "This ends now, Dad. Either we find a way forward that respects both companies, or we become very public adversaries. Your choice." The silence that followed was electric with tension. William set down his utensils, studied his son with new eyes, then turned his attention to me. "I've underestimated both of you," he said finally. "A mistake I won't repeat." "Then let's discuss a partnership that actually works," I suggested, steering the conversation back to constructive ground. "One where Bennett Technologies provides manufacturing and distribution, while Horizon maintains control of our technology development and accessibility mission." "With shared revenue on jointly developed products," Ryan added. William considered this. "And management structure?" "Independent leadership for each company," I replied firmly, "with a joint committee for collaborative projects." "No controlling interest," Ryan emphasized. "No hostile acquisition attempts." William frowned. "You're asking me to surrender a significant tactical advantage." "I'm asking you to build something better than what predatory tactics could achieve," I corrected him. "A genuine partnership that leverages the strengths of both companies." The calculating look returned to William's expression. "And what guarantees do I have that once this partnership is established, Horizon won't simply exploit Bennett Technologies' resources and then break away?" "The same guarantees we have That you won't try to absorb us the moment it's convenient, I replied. Legally binding contracts and mutual self-interest, and something more important than either of those, Ryan added quietly. Family. William's gaze shifted to his son. Meaning? Meaning I'm asking you to accept, finally and completely, that Emma is my wife, that she's brilliant and driven, and exactly the kind of partner both I and Bennett Technologies need. Ryan's voice grew stronger with each word. I'm asking you to see what I've always seen in her, and to respect both her and the company she's built. Diane reached across the table to touch her husband's hand. William, she said softly, it's time. Something unspoken passed between them, years of marriage creating a shorthand I couldn't decipher. After a long moment, William sighed, subtle, but definite surrender in the sound. The partnership proposal requires revision, he said, businesslike once more. But the core concept is workable. Relief washed through me, though I was careful not to show it. Our legal team can work with yours on the details. Not just legal teams, William countered. I want you and Ryan directly involved. If this is to be a true partnership, it starts with the principles. Ryan looked surprised. You want me involved in the negotiations? You've made your position clear, William replied, a new note of respect in his voice. And you've chosen your side. Now I expect you to represent Bennett Technologies' interests alongside your wife's company. It was a test and an opportunity. William was offering Ryan a meaningful role at last, while simultaneously challenging his ability to balance competing interests. I can represent Bennett Technologies without undermining Horizon, Ryan said, accepting the challenge. The partnership should benefit both companies. William nodded, satisfied with the response. We'll begin work on the revised agreement tomorrow. He turned to me. And, Emma, I believe an apology is overdue. My actions regarding your parents' store were inappropriate. I will make amends. The acknowledgement, however grudging, was more than I had expected. Thank you. That would mean a great deal to them. As the dinner progressed to dessert, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Diane, who had remained largely silent during the business discussions, began sharing stories of Ryan's childhood. Tales I'd never heard before, as if finally accepting me as someone worthy of family history. By the time we prepared to leave, something fundamental had changed. Not a complete transformation. William Bennett would always be a calculating businessman, and Diane would always measure people against her social standards, but a shift in how they saw me. No longer the gold-digging outsider, but a force to be reckoned with, a partner rather than a threat. In the car driving home, Ryan seemed thoughtful, processing the evening's developments. That went better than expected, I offered, breaking the silence. Dad doesn't apologize, he said, still sounding surprised. Ever. The fact that he acknowledged what happened with your parents. He shook his head. That's unprecedented. People can change when forced to confront reality, I suggested. Your father's very practical beneath all the power posturing. He knows a partnership with Horizon makes business sense. It's more than that. Ryan glanced over at me. He respects you. I saw it in how he spoke to you, how he listened. That doesn't happen often. I smiled, feeling a weight lifting that I hadn't fully acknowledged was there. Does this mean Vanessa will stop calling me a gold digger at family events? Ryan laughed. Let's not expect miracles. But I think even she'll have to adjust her perspective after the partnership is announced. As we crossed back over the floating bridge toward Seattle, the city lights glimmered against the night sky. Our condo building was visible in the downtown skyline, windows illuminated among dozens of others. Do you think it will work? I asked, watching the city grow closer. The partnership? Ryan took my hand, squeezing gently. If anyone can make it work, it's you. You've already accomplished the impossible. making William Bennett back down. "We did that together," I reminded him. "And we'll build this partnership together too." Back in our condo, as we prepared for bed, I checked my phone to find a message from Zoe. "How bad was dinner with the Demon King and Queen? Do we still have a company, or should I update my resume?" I smiled, typing back, "Partnership moving forward. William actually apologized for your arrest. Still wouldn't trust him with my coffee order, but progress is happening." Her response came quickly. "Mind blown. Drinks tomorrow so you can tell me everything." As I set my phone aside, Ryan emerged from the bathroom, looking thoughtful. "I just got a text from Daniel Rivera. Apparently news of our dinner with my parents is already circulating." "Seattle's tech community runs on gossip," I observed. "What did he say?" "That Westlake group remains committed to their investment regardless of the partnership outcome, and that he's impressed by how we've handled the situation." Ryan sat on the edge of the bed. He also mentioned that 3 other venture capital firms have expressed interest in Horizon since the STA dinner. "Good news travels fast," I mused, joining him. "Though I suspect your father won't be thrilled about outside investment alongside the partnership." "Dad will need to adapt," Ryan said firmly. "You've built something remarkable, Emma. Something that deserves to grow on its own terms, not just as an appendage to Bennett Technologies." I leaned against his shoulder, suddenly exhausted from the emotional toll of the evening. "Do you think your parents will ever truly accept me? Not just as a business partner, but as family?" Ryan wrapped an arm around me. "I think they've already started to. Dad doesn't invite people he doesn't respect to the lake house for private negotiations. And Mom actually looked at you tonight, really looked at you, instead of through you." "Baby steps," I said with a small smile. "More like giant leaps for the Bennetts." He kissed the top of my head. "Rest. Tomorrow we start drafting the future of Horizon, of Bennett Technologies, and of us." That night, I slept more soundly than I had since the email mishap that had started this chain of events. The battle wasn't over. The partnership negotiations would be complex and likely contentious at times. But the worst was behind us. My company would survive. My relationship with Ryan had emerged stronger. And most surprisingly, I had earned something I'd never expected from the Bennett family: respect. As dawn broke over Seattle, I awoke to an email notification. From William Bennett, sent at 5:30 a.m. Evidently, he was an early riser. The subject line read simply, "Partnership terms, revised proposal." Ryan stirred beside me. "What is it?" I opened the email, scanning its contents with growing surprise. "Your father has countered our proposal, but instead of demanding more control, he's suggesting a third entity, a joint venture specifically focused on accessibility technology for government and education sectors." Ryan sat up, fully awake now. "Let me see." We read through William's proposal together, noting the careful balance it struck. Horizon would maintain complete independence while contributing our expertise to the joint venture. Bennett Technologies would provide manufacturing and distribution infrastructure. Profits would be shared equally. "This is reasonable," I said, unable to hide my surprise. "More than reasonable." "Dad doesn't make concessions unless he sees significant value," Ryan noted, sounding impressed. "He must really believe in what Horizon is doing. Or he believes in us," I suggested, "in what we can accomplish together." Ryan smiled, wrapping an arm around my shoulders as we continued to review the proposal. "I think you might be right." Later that morning, as I prepared for a day of meetings to discuss the partnership, my phone rang with an unexpected caller, Diane Bennett. "Emma, dear," she said when I answered, her tone warmer than I'd ever heard it. "I was hoping we might have lunch next week. There are some charity board positions opening up that I think would benefit from your perspective. And," she added, her voice softening further, "I'd like to know more about your parents, Perhaps we could arrange to visit their new store sometime. The overture was clear, not quite an apology, but an olive branch, a recognition that I was indeed family. "I'd like that, Diane," I replied, surprising myself with the sincerity in my voice. "Thank you." After we hung up, I stood by the window of our condo, looking out at the Seattle skyline, the city that had become my home, where I'd built my company and my life with Ryan. The city where, just days ago, I'd been fighting for professional survival against my in-laws' attacks. Now, somehow, we were moving toward partnership, toward family. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan, who had left early for a meeting at Bennett Technologies. Dad just introduced me to the executive team as the future of this company. Pretty. Sure hell just froze over. I smiled, typing back, "The Bennett family is full of surprises lately." His response came quickly. "Good surprises, finally. Love you. See you at the partnership meeting this afternoon." As I gathered my things and prepared to leave for Horizon's offices, I thought about the email that had started it all. The accidental sharing of my financial records that had exposed the truth about my success, my independence, my worth. Sometimes, I reflected, mistakes turn out to be the best things that could happen to us. This one had forced confrontations long overdue, had revealed truths that needed to be acknowledged, had transformed perceptions that had been poisoning relationships for years. The gold digger narrative was dead. In its place was something far more powerful: recognition, respect, the beginnings of true family bonds. And as I stepped into the elevator, portfolio in hand and confidence in my stride, I knew that whatever challenges the partnership negotiations might bring, the hardest battle had already been won. Not just for Horizon Solutions, but for me personally. I was no longer the outsider fighting for acceptance. I was Emma Chen, successful tech entrepreneur and equal partner in the future of the Bennett family legacy. The gold digger accusations had backfired spectacularly, and I couldn't wait to see what came next. 6 months after the landmark partnership agreement between Horizon Solutions and Bennett Technologies, I stood at the podium in the Seattle Convention Center, surveying the crowd of tech industry leaders, journalists, and accessibility advocates, gathered for the official launch of AccessTech's first product suite. The irony wasn't lost on me. Almost to the day, half a year ago, I'd been fighting for my company's survival against the very family that now stood beside me as partners. Access Platform represents more than just innovative technology, I continued. The confidence in my voice a stark contrast to how I'd felt at previous industry events where the Bennett family's influence had made me an outsider. It embodies our shared belief that digital accessibility isn't a luxury or an afterthought. It's a fundamental right. When we remove barriers to technology, we unlock human potential. From the front row, Ryan smiled encouragingly. Beside him sat William Bennett, his expression thoughtful rather than calculating, a subtle but significant shift I'd observed over the months of working together. Diane Bennett nodded along with my words, while Vanessa, though still maintaining her cool demeanor, at least appeared engaged rather than dismissive. I'd like to invite my partner in this venture, Ryan Bennett, to share more about how our companies are implementing these solutions internally. I stepped back from the microphone, squeezing Ryan's shoulder as we exchanged places. "Thank you, Emma," he began, his voice carrying confidently through the hall. "When we talk about accessibility at AccessTech, we're not just selling software. We're transforming corporate culture from the inside out. Bennett Technologies has implemented these tools across all our divisions, and the results have been enlightening." As Ryan detailed the internal changes at his family's company, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought us here. The accidental email that exposed my financial records to the Bennett family had seemed catastrophic at the time, the ultimate professional humiliation. Yet, without that catalyst, would we have reached this point of genuine collaboration? Would the Bennetts have ever recognized my value beyond their gold digger assumptions? Would Ryan have found the courage to challenge his family's legacy of corporate aggression? Sometimes, I mused, our greatest vulnerabilities become our greatest strengths when exposed to the light. The presentation concluded to enthusiastic applause, followed by a demonstration area where attendees could experience our accessibility tools firsthand. I circulated through the crowd, answering technical questions and accepting congratulations, until I found myself face to face with Daniel Rivera, whose investment had proved crucial during the darkest days of the Bennett conflict. Remarkable. Achievement, Emma, he said, extending his hand. When I invested in Horizon Solutions, I knew you had potential. But this, he gestured around the room, this exceeds even my expectations. Your faith in us made a difference, I acknowledged, especially when others were being warned away. Rivera smiled knowingly. Speaking of which, have you seen today's Business Weekly? I shook my head. Launch preparations had consumed my attention for days. Bennett Technologies' stock is up 15% since the partnership announcement. William is being hailed as a visionary for embracing accessibility technology. His eyes twinkled with amusement. Quite the rehabilitation for a man who was trying to destroy your company half a year ago. People can change, I said, surprising myself with how genuinely I believed it. Even William Bennett. People change when they have reason to, Rivera corrected. You gave him that reason. Not many could have turned an enemy into an ally so effectively. Before I could respond, Zoe appeared at my elbow, tablet in hand. Emma, the Department of Education representatives are here. They're eager to discuss implementing Access platform across their digital learning environments. I excused myself from Rivera and followed Zoe to a quieter corner of the convention hall where a delegation from Washington, D.C. waited. As Chief Technology Officer of Horizon Solutions, Zoe had been instrumental in translating our accessibility vision into practical applications. Her wrongful arrest during the Bennett conflict had only strengthened her commitment to our mission and her wariness of corporate politics. Dr. Hernandez, welcome, I greeted the lead representative. I understand you have questions about large-scale deployment. The next hour dissolved into technical discussions, contract parameters, and implementation timelines. Throughout, I was aware of the Bennett family moving through the crowd. William commanding attention from industry veterans, Diane charming, potential investors, and Vanessa, surprisingly, engaged in what appeared to be a substantive conversation with a group of disability advocates. By late afternoon, as the event wound down, exhaustion began to set in. I found a quiet moment to slip away to the green room, kicking off my heels and sinking into a chair. The door opened softly, and Ryan entered, loosening his tie. There, you are, he said, dropping into the chair beside me. Hiding from your adoring public? I smiled, leaning my head against his shoulder. Just recharging. It's been intense. In a good way, though. He took my hand, examining the jade ring that had replaced my original diamond engagement ring, a gift from my grandmother that I'd reclaimed from safe storage once I no longer felt pressured to display Bennett-appropriate jewelry. You were amazing out there today. So were you, I said. Your father actually looked proud when you were speaking. Ryan's expression turned reflective. He was proud, told me so directly, which might be a first. He hesitated. He's different since all this began, Emma. The partnership, the focus on accessibility, reconnecting with the innovative side of the business. It's like watching someone remember who they used to be before power became their only goal. People can surprise you, I agreed, thinking of my own evolving relationships with the Bennett family. Though Vanessa still looks at me like she's calculating how much my outfit cost compared to hers. Baby steps, Ryan laughed. At least she's calling you by your name now instead of Ryan's wife, or that app girl. A knock at the door interrupted our moment of peace. William Bennett entered, his commanding presence filling the small room despite his attempt at casual posture. There you are, he said, echoing his son's earlier words. The education secretary is calling personally to discuss nationwide implementation. I took the liberty of setting up a conference call for tomorrow morning. 6 months ago, I would have interpreted this as an overstep, an attempt to control negotiations. Now I recognized it for what it was, William's way of contributing value. His connections and influence were assets to our partnership when not wielded as weapons. Thank you, I said sincerely. That could accelerate our rollout significantly. William nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. The market response exceeds projections. Bennett Technologies' hardware division is already scaling up production for the accessible devices we discussed. And Horizon's development team is finalizing the next generation of software, I added. We'll be ready for the expanded manufacturing capacity. A comfortable silence followed, the kind that would have been impossible in our earlier interactions. William seemed on the verge of leaving, then unexpectedly took a seat across from us. I've been meaning to speak with you both, he said, his tone shifting to something more personal. About the family foundation. The Bennett Family Foundation had existed for generations, primarily as a tax strategy and occasional source of positive PR. Since our partnership, however, discussions had begun about refocusing its mission toward digital equity and education. What about it? Ryan asked. I'd like to propose a name change, William said, meeting my gaze directly, to the Bennett Chen Foundation for Digital Inclusion. The significance of the gesture wasn't lost on me. To a family like the Bennetts, where legacy and name carried immense weight, this represented more than a rebranding. It was formal recognition that I, and by extension my family, had earned a place in their world not through marriage, but through merit. I searched for words. That's very meaningful, William. Thank you. It makes sense, he replied, his matter-of-fact tone belying the importance of the moment. The Foundation's new focus draws equally from both families' values. The name should reflect that. Ryan reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. I think it's perfect, Dad. William stood, straightening his suit jacket. Good. I'll have the paperwork drawn up. He paused at the door. Diane suggests dinner next weekend at the lake house. Your parents should come too, Emma. We can make the Foundation announcement official. After he left, Ryan turned to me with raised eyebrows. Did my father just voluntarily suggest including your parents in a family gathering? I believe he did, I said, equal parts amused and touched. Times really have changed. All because you accidentally sent your financial records to my family, Ryan mused, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. Best mistake you ever made, I laughed, leaning into him. From catastrophe to catalyst. The following weekend found us at the Bennett Lake House, the setting sun casting golden light across Lake Washington as our families gathered on the expansive terrace. My parents, initially hesitant about accepting the invitation, now conversed comfortably with Diane about the recent renovation of their grocery store, a project that had mysteriously received expedited permits and preferential contractor rates through what William had casually referred to as a few calls to friends in the city. Your mother seems to be enjoying herself, Ryan observed as we stood by the etched railing, watching my mother animatedly describe something to Diane and Vanessa. Apparently, they discovered a shared passion for container gardening, I replied. Your mother offered to connect her with suppliers for some rare Asian herbs she's been trying to source for the store. And your father and mine are discussing fishing, I supplied. Don't ask me how that happened. Last I checked, your dad was offering to take him out on the Bennett yacht next month. Ryan laughed, shaking his head in wonder. If someone had told me a year ago that our families would be planning outings together, I'd have thought they were delusional. Emma! Vanessa approached, wineglass in hand. Her relationship with me remained the most tentative of all the Bennett connections, but even there progress was evident. I've been meaning to ask you about the accessibility workshop Horizon is hosting next month. James and I have been discussing how his investment firm might implement some of those principles. I'd be happy to get you details, I replied, pleasantly, surprised by her interest. We're focusing on financial services in the second quarter, actually. The current digital banking landscape has significant barriers for users with disabilities. That's exactly what James was concerned about, she said, glancing toward her husband who was engaged in conversation with Zoe near the outdoor bar. Perhaps we could schedule a proper consultation? Of course. I'll have my assistant contact you next week. As Vanessa nodded and moved away, Ryan gave me a knowing look. See? Even the Ice Queen thaws eventually. She's making an effort, I acknowledged. That's something. Dinner was served as darkness fell, the table on the terrace illuminated by elegant lanterns that reflected off the lake's surface. Unlike the tense negotiation dinner months earlier, the atmosphere remained relaxed and genuinely warm. William, at the head of the table, seemed less the corporate titan and more the family patriarch, still commanding respect, but without the ruthless edge that had once defined him. After the main course, he stood, tapping his glass for attention. Before dessert, I'd like to make an announcement. He surveyed the gathered faces, Bennett's and Chen's, Horizon and Bennett Technologies employees, family and colleagues now interwoven in ways that once seemed impossible. 6 months ago, our families found themselves in conflict, William began, his candor surprising those who knew his usual preference for polished corporate speak. A conflict born from misunderstanding, prejudice, and… Here he glanced at me, my own failure to recognize value beyond traditional measures. My father shifted in his seat, unused to such direct acknowledgement from a man who had once viewed his grocery store as beneath notice. Today we celebrate not just a successful business partnership, but a new chapter for both our families. William lifted his glass. The Bennett Family Foundation, which has operated in various forms for 3 generations, will be renamed the Bennett Chen Foundation for Digital Inclusion, with a renewed mission to ensure technology serves all people, regardless of ability, background, or circumstance. Murmurs of appreciation rippled around the table. My mother's eyes glistened with tears as she looked at me, understanding the significance of this gesture in ways others might not fully grasp. Emma and Ryan will serve as co-directors, William continued, with an initial endowment of $20 million and a commitment to fund initiatives that bridge digital divides across communities. I nearly choked on my wine. We had discussed the name change, but not the endowment amount or leadership structure. Ryan looked equally surprised, suggesting this decision had been made without his knowledge as well. Furthermore, William added, the Foundation's first initiative will be the establishment of technology centers in underserved areas, beginning with Rainier Valley, where Emma's parents have served the community for decades through their grocery business. My father's expression shifted from surprise to deep gratitude. The Rainier Valley neighborhood had suffered from digital redlining for years, with limited broadband access and few resources for technology education. This initiative would make a tangible difference in the lives of families like mine had once been. To the Bennett Chen Foundation, William concluded, raising his glass higher, and to the power of recognizing worth in unexpected places. As glasses clinked around the table, I caught my mother's eye. Her smile conveyed everything words couldn't: pride, vindication, and the quiet satisfaction of seeing her daughter recognized not despite her background, but partly because of it. The values they had instilled in me, hard work, resilience, community, were now being celebrated by the very family that had once dismissed them. After dinner, as guests mingled on the terrace and indoor living areas, I found a moment alone with William by the lakefront. The water lapped gently against the shore, stars reflecting on its surface like scattered diamonds. $20 million is a significant endowment, I said, breaking the companionable silence. It's appropriate to the mission, he replied. And to the leadership. You didn't discuss the co-director position with us beforehand. William turned slightly, his profile illuminated by the distant lights of the house. Would you have declined? No, I admitted. But it's a substantial responsibility. Alongside running Horizon and the Access Tech partnership, you've proven yourself capable of handling substantial responsibilities, he said, his tone matter-of-fact, yet carrying an undercurrent of respect that still surprised me whenever I heard it. Both of you have. I studied him, this complex man who had evolved from adversary to ally in ways I never could have anticipated. This foundation means a lot to you, doesn't it? Beyond the business benefits or public relations value. William was silent for a long moment, gazing out at the dark water. My father built Bennett Technologies from nothing, he finally said. He had a vision of technology improving lives. Somewhere along the way, that vision became secondary to market share, to crushing competition, to power for its own sake. He sighed, a rare display of vulnerability. You reminded me of what we were supposed to be building all along. The admission touched me more deeply than I expected. The Rainier Valley Initiative, that wasn't just for show, was it? No. He turned to face me fully. Consider it partial amends for what happened to your parents' store. Some wrongs can't be undone, but perhaps they can be balanced by right actions going forward. Thank you, I said simply, knowing he would understand all that those two words encompassed. We rejoined the gathering as dessert was being served. Ryan found me immediately, his expression a mix of amazement and amusement. Did my father just make you co-director of a $20 million foundation without warning either of us? He whispered. Apparently, I replied, accepting the coffee Diane offered as she passed. Some habits die hard. He still likes to make unilateral decisions. At least this one is positive, Ryan conceded, and well-deserved. As the evening progressed, I found myself in conversation with James, Vanessa's husband, who had remained somewhat peripheral during the earlier conflicts. His background in investment banking had initially made him seem aligned with the Bennett family's traditional values, but tonight he spoke passionately about accessible financial services. The potential market is vastly underserved, he explained, his banker's pragmatism warming with genuine enthusiasm. Beyond the ethical imperatives, there's a solid business case for financial accessibility. These aren't charity cases. They're untapped customer segments. That's exactly the message we're trying to convey with Access Tech, I agreed. Accessibility benefits everyone, including the bottom line. Vanessa mentioned your upcoming workshop, he continued. I'd like to send several members of our development team, if that's possible. Of course, I assured him. We'd welcome their participation. Across the room, I noticed my father deep in conversation with William, both men gesturing animatedly about something. My mother, meanwhile, was showing photos on her phone to Diane and Vanessa, likely pictures of the store's renovation or perhaps family photos from my childhood. The scene struck me with its normalcy. Two families connected through marriage, sharing stories and building relationships. What made it extraordinary was how impossible such a gathering would have seemed just months earlier, when the very mention of the Bennett name had filled me with dread and resentment. Later, as the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Zoe pulled me aside near the entrance. If anyone had told me 6 months ago that I'd be having a civilized conversation with the family that had me wrongfully arrested, I'd have questioned their sanity, she said, keeping her voice low. Yet here we are, and I just spent 20 minutes discussing adaptive technology with William Bennett himself. Life takes unexpected turns, I agreed. That's one way of putting it. Zoe glanced toward William, who was saying goodbye to my parents with surprising warmth. Just keep your eyes open, Emma. People change, but rarely completely. Her caution was understandable given her experience, but I found myself less guarded than I might have expected. I don't think William will ever be warm and fuzzy, I acknowledged. But I do believe he's sincere about the partnership and the foundation. Sometimes people just need their perspective shifted. And sometimes they need their entire worldview shattered, Zoe added with a smile. Like when they discover the woman they've been calling a gold digger is actually worth more than their son. I laughed, the memory of that email mishap now more amusing than mortifying. Financial records, the great equalizer. As the evening concluded and the last guests departed, Ryan and I found ourselves helping my parents to their car. The sight of my father shaking hands with William Bennett at the end of the driveway, two patriarchs from wildly different worlds finding common ground, brought an unexpected lump to my throat. "Your father invited us sailing next month," my mother said as she embraced me goodbye. "He says we should see the San Juan Islands from the water at least once in our lives." "And you agreed?" I asked, knowing my mother's usual wariness of such invitations. She smiled, surprising me with her response. "People can surprise you, Emma. Even people like the Bennetts." She glanced toward William and Diane, who now stood arm in arm on the porch. "They're trying. That counts for something." After my parents departed, Ryan and I walked back to the house, where Diane had begun gathering empty glasses from the terrace, while house staff cleared the dinner table. "Stay the night," she suggested, her invitation spontaneous rather than the carefully planned social machination I'd grown accustomed to from her. "It's late, and the guest suite is made up." I glanced at Ryan, who seemed as surprised as I was by his mother's casual warmth. "That's very kind," I said. "Thank you." Later, as we settled into the lake house's elegant guest suite, a space I'd never been invited to occupy before, Ryan pulled me close, his expression thoughtful. "What are you thinking about?" I asked, recognizing the contemplative look that often preceded his most insightful observations. "About the foundation announcement," he replied, "and what it really means coming from my father." "It's a significant gesture," I agreed. "It's more than that." Ryan's voice grew soft. "For the Bennetts, the family name isn't just a label. It's identity, legacy, power. Adding Chen to the foundation name isn't just acknowledgement, Emma. It's integration. It means you, your family, your values, your heritage, are now part of what defines us going forward." The weight of his words settled around me, and I realized he was right. This wasn't merely corporate rebranding or philanthropic strategy. For a family like the Bennetts, this was transformation at the deepest level. "From gold digger to foundation co-director," I mused. "Quite the plot twist." Ryan laughed softly, kissing my forehead. "The best kind of plot twist, the one where truth prevails over prejudice." Morning came with gentle sunshine streaming through the lake house windows. I woke early, slipping from bed without disturbing Ryan, and made my way to the kitchen for coffee. To my surprise, I found William already there, dressed casually in a sweater and slacks, reading financial news on a tablet. "Emma?" he acknowledged, seeming unfazed by my appearance in his domain. "Coffee's fresh. Help yourself." I poured a cup, wondering briefly if there had ever been a time I'd have felt comfortable in such casual morning interaction with my father-in-law. Probably not, until now. "The market's responding well to the Access Tech launch," William observed, sliding his tablet toward me to show the business headlines. "Stock's up another 3 points this morning." "That's encouraging," I said, taking a seat across from him at the kitchen island. The education sector interest exceeded our projections. William nodded, a hint of pride visible beneath his usual composed exterior. "Your vision for the application was sound. Bennett Technologies' hardware capabilities gave it the necessary scale. Together, we've created something neither could have achieved alone." The simple acknowledgement that our partnership was genuinely synergistic rather than merely tactical filled me with quiet satisfaction. This was what I'd hoped for when agreeing to the partnership. True collaboration that honored both companies' strengths. The Bennett Chen Foundation will amplify that impact, I said, taking a sip of coffee, making the technology available in communities that would otherwise be left behind. My father would have approved, William said unexpectedly. He believed technology should serve people, not the other way around, before shareholders and quarterly reports complicated everything. It was the most personal glimpse he'd ever offered into his family's history, into the values that had shaped Bennett Technologies before corporate growth became its driving force. What was he like? I asked. Your father? William seemed surprised by the question, but after a moment of consideration, he answered, brilliant, demanding, but principled in ways I sometimes forgot to be. He met my gaze directly. He would have recognized your worth immediately without needing a financial statement to prove it. The admission, part apology, part reflection, hung between us, more meaningful than any formal statement could have been. I'd like to think he'd be pleased with where we've arrived, I offered, even if the path was unconventional. A rare smile crossed William's face. Indeed he would. Ryan appeared in the doorway, hair slightly rumpled from sleep, surprise evident in his expression at finding us engaged in comfortable conversation. Morning, he said, moving to pour himself coffee. What did I miss? Just discussing your grandfather, William replied, and how perspectives change over time. Ryan raised an eyebrow, clearly sensing he'd missed a significant exchange. Speaking of change, I had an idea about the Foundation's Rainier Valley Initiative. What if we incorporated Emma's parents' store as a community hub? Add a technology center right there, where it's already a neighborhood gathering place? The suggestion caught me by surprise, not because it wasn't logical, but because it represented such perfect synthesis of our family's worlds. The grocery store that the Bennetts had once viewed as embarrassingly humble would become part of their foundation's flagship initiative. That's an excellent idea, William said without hesitation. Community-based, leveraging existing relationships, practical implementation. As Ryan elaborated on his vision and William engaged with genuine interest, I watched them with a sense of wonder. These moments of authentic connection and shared purpose had seemed impossible when I'd first encountered the Bennett family's dismissive attitudes. Yet here we were, planning a future that honored both families' values and strengths. Later that morning, as we prepared to leave the lake house, Diane joined us in the driveway. She handed me a small gift bag with the Bennett family crest embossed on its side. A small token, she said, her usual formality softened with what appeared to be genuine warmth. For the new foundation director. Inside the bag, I found an elegant leather-bound planner with my initials, ECB, embossed in gold on the cover. Thank you, I said, touched by the personalized gift. It's beautiful. I thought you might need it, with all the new responsibilities, Diane replied. Then, surprising me further, she added, your mother mentioned you've always been meticulously organized, even as a child. Said you used to help categorize inventory at the grocery store when you were just 7 years old. The fact that she had not only spoken with my mother in depth, but had retained such a personal detail marked another subtle shift in our relationship. No longer was I merely Ryan's wife to be tolerated. I was Emma Chen Bennett, a person with a history and qualities worth knowing. As we drove back toward Seattle, the lake house receding in the rearview mirror, Ryan reached over to take my hand. What are you thinking? He asked, noticing my contemplative expression. About journeys, I replied. How sometimes the most painful moments lead to the most meaningful growth. Like an accidentally forwarded email exposing your financial records to my judgmental family? I laughed, squeezing his hand. Exactly like that. Without that mistake, would any of this have happened? Would your father have recognized my worth as a businesswoman? Would you have found the courage to stand up to him? Would our companies have formed this partnership? Probably not, Ryan admitted. Sometimes catastrophe becomes catalyst. As Seattle's skyline appeared on the horizon, the city where I'd built my company, fallen in love, and now found unexpected family reconciliation, I felt a sense of completion. The journey that had begun with humiliation and anger had transformed into something I never could have anticipated: genuine respect, productive partnership, and the beginnings of true family bonds. The gold digger narrative was dead, replaced by a more powerful truth. I hadn't married into the Bennett fortune. I had brought my own value to the relationship, both personally and professionally. And in acknowledging that truth, both families had found something more valuable than money or status: authentic connection across differences that once seemed insurmountable. As we entered the city limits, my phone buzzed with a message from Zoe. New DoD contract just came through. Access Tech platform to be implemented across all civilian departments. Biggest deal yet. I showed the message to Ryan, who grinned. The partnership delivers again. We're just getting started, I replied, already envisioning the next phase of our shared journey. The Bennett-Chen era was only beginning, and unlike the painful path that had brought us here, the road ahead, while surely not without its challenges, would be traveled together, with mutual respect as our foundation and shared purpose as our guide. 1 year to the day after my financial records were accidentally emailed to the Bennett family, I stood on the rooftop terrace of Horizon Solutions' new headquarters in downtown Seattle. The space was filled with employees, investors, and partners, celebrating our company's 5th anniversary and the phenomenal success of our joint venture with Bennett Technologies. From this height, I could see Mount Rainier in the distance, its snow-capped peak glowing pink in the sunset, a view that never failed to remind me how far I'd come from the one-bedroom apartment where I'd started coding the first version of our accessibility software. "Penny for your thoughts," Ryan said, appearing beside me with 2 champagne flutes. He handed me one, following my gaze to the mountain. "Just reflecting on the journey," I replied, accepting the glass. 1 year ago today, I was having a panic attack because I'd accidentally sent all my financial information to your family. Ryan laughed, the sound warm against the cool evening air. "Best mistake you ever made." It certainly had unexpected consequences. I took a sip of champagne, surveying the gathering. Zoe was deep in conversation with several engineers near the bar. My parents chatted comfortably with a group of investors, my father's animated gestures suggesting he was sharing one of his favorite business anecdotes. And across the terrace, William Bennett stood with Daniel Rivera, both men looking surprisingly relaxed as they discussed something over drinks. "Did you ever imagine this?" Ryan asked, following my gaze to where his father stood. "William Bennett as an actual ally instead of your nemesis?" I shook my head. Never. Though I'm still not sure I'd fully turn my back on him in a negotiation. "Wise," Ryan agreed with a smile. "Dad respects you enormously, but old habits die hard." The transformation in our relationship with the Bennett family had been remarkable but not instantaneous. The partnership between our companies had started as a pragmatic truce, evolving gradually into genuine collaboration as the commercial success of our joint accessibility technology proved William's business instincts correct. Professional respect had eventually softened the personal tensions, though Vanessa still occasionally made comments that reminded me of our difficult history. "Speaking of your father," I said, nodding toward the entrance where Diane Bennett had just arrived, elegant as always in a tailored navy dress. "Your mother's here, fashionably late, of course." "Some things never change," Ryan observed fondly. As we watched, Diane made her way through the crowd, stopping to greet my mother with an air kiss and genuine smile, a far cry from the cold politeness that had characterized their early interactions. The 2 women had formed an unexpected bond over the past year, with Diane providing connections to help expand my parents' grocery store and my mother teaching Diane to make traditional Chinese dishes that she now proudly served at Bennett family gatherings. "Time for your speech," Zoe called, approaching us with tablet in hand. "Everyone's assembled, and the live stream to our international offices is ready." I handed my glass to Ryan and smoothed my dress, a designer piece that I'd chosen for myself, no longer feeling the need to prove anything about my financial status or taste level to the Bennett family. Those battles had been decisively won the day my financial records landed in their inboxes. The crowd quieted as I took my position at the small podium set up near the edge of the terrace, Seattle's glittering skyline creating a dramatic backdrop. Faces turned toward me expectantly. Horizon employees who had been with me from the start, Bennett Technologies engineers who had initially approached our collaboration with skepticism, investors who had stood by us through the turbulent days of William's attempted takeover. 5 years ago, I began, Horizon Solutions was nothing more than an idea and a determination to make digital spaces accessible to everyone. Today, our technology serves millions of users worldwide, breaking down barriers that once seemed insurmountable. I paused, letting my gaze sweep across the gathered crowd. But the story of our success isn't just about innovative code or market expansion. It's about connections, unexpected ones that challenge our assumptions and push us to grow. From the corner of my eye, I saw William Bennett nod slightly, acknowledging the subtle reference to our own complicated history. A year ago, Horizon faced an existential threat when a larger competitor, polite laughter rippled through the crowd at this understated description of the Bennett Technologies attack, decided we were worth eliminating. Many companies wouldn't have survived that challenge. But sometimes, when we're forced to fight for what we've built, we discover strengths we didn't know we had. I glanced at Ryan, who raised his glass in a small salute. The partnership between Horizon Solutions and Bennett Technologies wasn't in anyone's business plan. It emerged from conflict, from misunderstanding, from having to look beyond surface judgments to recognize the value each of us brings to the table. I smiled. And in the process, it transformed not just our companies, but our perspectives. The speech continued with acknowledgments of key team members, milestones achieved, and goals for the coming year. I announced the expansion of our accessibility platform into healthcare settings, the opening of satellite offices in Europe and Asia, and the Bennett Chen Foundation's latest initiative to bring adaptive technology to underserved communities. As I concluded to warm applause, I felt a wave of satisfaction that went beyond professional accomplishment. The journey from being dismissed as a gold-digging outsider to standing here as a respected business leader and true member of the extended Bennett family represented a victory far more meaningful than any contract or market valuation. "Beautifully said," Diane commented as I rejoined the gathering. "Though you were very diplomatic about how things began between our families. Some details are better left for private conversations," I replied with a smile. "Indeed." She sipped her champagne, her expression turning more serious. "I've been meaning to tell you something, Emma, about those early days." I tensed slightly, unsure what revelation might be coming. "I was wrong about you," Diane said, simply. "Not just about your motives or your background, but about what you would bring to our family. You've made Ryan happier and more confident than I've ever seen him. You've challenged William to reconnect with the innovative spirit that built Bennett Technologies in the first place. And you've taught me that my narrow definition of what makes someone suitable was not just unfair, but foolish." The directness of her admission caught me off guard. Diane Bennett had softened toward me gradually over the past year, but she had never before acknowledged her initial prejudice so explicitly. "Thank you for saying that," I managed, genuinely touched. "Well, one should admit when one has been thoroughly proven wrong," she replied, some of her customary crispness returning. "Besides, I understand you'll be making an announcement soon that will make us all family in an even more permanent sense. My hand instinctively moved to my stomach, still flat but harboring our secret of just 10 weeks. How did you… My… Dear, I've raised 3 children. I notice when someone switches from champagne to sparkling water at every event. Diane's expression softened into a genuine smile. Don't worry, I haven't said a word to anyone, not even William. But when you're ready to share the news, know that we'll be thrilled. Before I could respond, Vanessa approached, her timing impeccable as always. Mother, Mrs. Whitfield is asking about the charity gala committee. She nodded at me with the careful politeness that had replaced her former open hostility. Emma, lovely speech. Thank you, Vanessa. I accepted the compliment with equal politeness, our détente still a work in progress compared to my warmer relationships with other Bennett family members. As Diane excused herself to attend to the guest, Vanessa lingered, an unusual hesitancy in her typically confident demeanor. Ryan mentioned you might be looking for office space in New York for Horizon's East Coast expansion, she said, smoothing her already perfect hair. We are. The market is challenging, though. I might have some connections that could help. Through James's firm. She named several prime locations that would be coming available before they hit the public market. I raised an eyebrow, surprised by the genuinely helpful information. That would be incredibly useful, Vanessa. Thank you. She waved off my gratitude with characteristic Bennett nonchalance. It's practical, having Horizon in proximity to Bennett. Technology's New York operations make sense for the partnership. But there was something else in her expression, perhaps not quite warmth, but a recognition that had been long in coming. For years, Vanessa had viewed me as an interloper threatening the Bennett legacy. Now, with Horizon's success and our joint venture contributing significantly to Bennett Technology's revitalized market position, she was beginning to see me as a legitimate business ally. Still, I appreciate the thought, I said, deciding to accept the olive branch for what it was. She nodded, then hesitated again before adding, The Bennett Children's Fund Board is looking for new directors. With your experience in accessibility, technology for education, you might have valuable perspective to offer. The invitation, for it was clearly that, despite the indirect phrasing, represented a significant shift. The Children's Fund was Vanessa's personal project, the center of her philanthropic identity. Inviting me to join its leadership was as close to a personal acceptance as I was likely to get from her. I'd be honored to consider it, I replied, matching her tone of careful neutrality while acknowledging the significance of the gesture. Our conversation was interrupted by my father appearing at my elbow, his face flushed with excitement. Emma, William just introduced me to the Commerce Secretary. He's interested in our store's community program for teaching digital skills to seniors. The pride in his voice warmed me. My father, who had once been devastated when his grocery store faced mysterious code violations right after my engagement to Ryan, was now finding his own place in the expanded Bennett-Chen orbit. The store had not only recovered, but thrived, transformed into a community hub that included a digital literacy center funded by our foundation. As the evening progressed, I found myself in conversation with Marcus Wong, the former Bennett Technologies accountant, whose brave decision to share information about William's tactics had helped me save Horizon during the darkest days of our conflict. After leaving Bennett Technologies, he had landed a senior position at a progressive tech firm, with a glowing recommendation from me that had offset the cloud of his departure from the Bennetts. No regrets? I asked him quietly, as we stood near the edge of the terrace overlooking the city lights. About helping you? He shook his head. Never. Some ethical lines shouldn't be crossed, even for a company you've served for decades. William seems to have forgiven you, I observed, noting that they had exchanged civil greetings earlier in the evening. Marcus smiled slightly. William Bennett respects those who stand their ground, even against him, especially when they're proven right in the end. He nodded toward where William stood with Ryan. The two men engaged in animated discussion about something displayed on Ryan's tablet. The partnership has been good for Bennett Technologies. Better than the takeover would have been. And better for Horizon than fighting a legal battle we might not have survived, I acknowledged. The best solutions often emerge from the worst. Conflicts, Marcus observed, when we're forced to see beyond our initial assumptions. As the celebration continued into the evening, I found myself drawn back to the edge of the terrace, gazing out at the city that had become my home. Seattle had embraced me, the daughter of Chinese immigrant grocers with big tech dreams, and allowed me to build something meaningful. Even the Bennett family, with all their old money prejudices and corporate ruthlessness, had eventually recognized the value I brought to the table. Ryan joined me at the railing, wrapping an arm around my waist. "My mother knows, doesn't she?" he murmured close to my ear. "About the baby?" "Yes." I leaned into him, comforted by his warmth. "Apparently, I'm not as subtle as I thought with the sparkling water." He chuckled. "Nothing escapes Diane Bennett's notice, but she's kept our secret?" "So far. Though I think we should make the announcement soon, before your father starts wondering why I'm turning down his excellent whiskey." Ryan's hand moved to rest protectively over my still flat stomach. A Bennett Chen air. The perfect symbol of our partnership. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," I cautioned, though his enthusiasm was infectious. "This child will be their own person, not a corporate merger symbol." "Of course." Ryan kissed my temple gently. "But you have to admit, there's a certain poetic justice in it. The family that once called you a gold digger will now have a grandchild who carries both our family's legacies." I smiled, acknowledging the irony. Life takes unexpected turns. "The best kind," he agreed. As the party began to wind down, William Bennett approached us, his customary commanding presence slightly softened by the successful evening. "Emma," he began without preamble, "the secretary was impressed with your accessibility initiative. He's suggested Horizon Solutions lead a federal task force on digital equity standards." "That's a significant opportunity," I replied, matching his business-focused tone while noting this was his way of offering congratulations. "We'd need to coordinate with Bennett Technologies on the hardware implications. Naturally, I've already directed our development team to begin preliminary work." William's expression shifted to something less corporate, more personal. "Your parents mentioned they're expanding the grocery store's community space." "Yes, the digital literacy program has been more successful than we anticipated. They need more room for classes." William nodded thoughtfully. "The Bennett Chen Foundation should consider making it a flagship initiative, a model for similar programs in other communities." The suggestion, linking our families' names to a project centered around my parents' humble grocery store, would have been unimaginable a year ago. It represented not just business alignment, but a genuine integration of our family's values and priorities. "I think that's an excellent idea," I said, finding myself truly meaning it. As William excused himself to speak with other guests, Ryan squeezed my hand. "A year ago, if someone had told you that William Bennett would be enthusiastically supporting your parents' grocery store initiatives, I'd have questioned their sanity," I finished with a laugh. Life really does take the most unexpected routes sometimes. The evening concluded with a final toast to Horizon's continued success and our expanding partnership with Bennett Technologies. As guests began to depart, I found myself drawn once more to the edge of the terrace, taking a moment alone to absorb everything the celebration represented. 1 year ago, I had been devastated by the accidental email that exposed my financial details to the judgmental Bennett family. What had seemed like a catastrophic mistake had instead become the catalyst for transformation, forcing confrontations that needed to happen, revealing truths that needed to be acknowledged, and ultimately creating space for genuine connection where only prejudice and misunderstanding had existed before. The gold digger narrative had been thoroughly demolished, replaced by something far more powerful. Mutual respect, built on genuine recognition of each other's worth. The path hadn't been smooth or easy. There had been confrontations, painful, revelations, moments when reconciliation seemed impossible. But we had persevered, finding a way forward that honored both families' strengths and values. As I rested my hand lightly over my stomach, feeling a profound connection to the new life growing within me, I sensed Ryan approaching from behind. "Ready to go home?" he asked softly, wrapping his arms around me. I nodded, turning in his embrace, to face him. Just thinking about how different everything is from a year ago. How one mistake changed everything. "Not the mistake," Ryan corrected gently. "Your response to it. You could have retreated, apologized, tried to smooth things over as you had for years. Instead, you stood your ground. You demanded respect." "We both did," I reminded him. "You finally stopped trying to please everyone and took a stand. Best decision I ever made." He kissed me softly, "Besides proposing to you in the first place." As we made our way through the remaining guests, accepting final congratulations and goodbyes, I caught sight of my parents speaking with William and Diane near the entrance. The four of them, heads close together in animated conversation, represented a bridge between worlds I had once thought permanently separate. Not perfect, not without complications, but genuine. In the elevator descending from the rooftop, Ryan and I stood in comfortable silence, his arm around my shoulders. The past year had strengthened our relationship in ways neither of us could have predicted, forcing us to define ourselves, individually and as a couple, outside the shadow of the Bennett family expectations. "When should we tell everyone about the baby?" Ryan asked as the elevator doors opened to the parking garage. I considered the question as we walked to our car. "Next weekend? Your parents are hosting that lunch at the lake house. My parents? We'll be there. It seems like the right setting." Ryan smiled, opening the passenger door for me. "The Bennett Chen heir, announced at the Bennett family lake house, with your parents in attendance. If that isn't a symbol of how far we've come, I don't know what is." As we drove through the Seattle night, the city lights reflecting off the water of Elliott Bay, I felt a deep sense of contentment. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had led to something genuine and valuable, in our business partnership, in our family relationships, and in our own marriage. The accidental email that had exposed my financial details to the Bennett family had been meant to humiliate me, to confirm their worst assumptions about my motives for marrying Ryan. Instead, it had revealed a truth they had refused to see, that I was a successful businesswoman in my own right, that I had never needed the Bennett fortune, that I had built something valuable through my own intelligence and determination. And in that revelation, something unexpected had happened. The Bennetts, prideful, judgmental, accustomed to power, had been forced to reconsider not just their perception of me, but their understanding of worth itself. What made someone valuable? What constituted success? What truly mattered in building a legacy? The answers they'd found had surprised all of us, opening doors to connection where walls had stood before. I rested my hand over my stomach again, thinking of the child who would carry both our family's DNA, our histories, our values. Not a corporate merger symbol, as I'd cautioned Ryan, but nonetheless a living embodiment of what could be created when people moved beyond prejudice to see each other's true worth. "What are you thinking about?" Ryan asked, glancing over as we stopped at a traffic light. "The future," I replied, "and how differently I see it now compared to a year ago." He reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "Better? Richer," I said after a moment's reflection. "More connected. Less about proving myself and more about building something meaningful. Together." The light turned green, and we moved forward into the Seattle night, leaving behind the celebration of what We'd already accomplished and heading toward all that was yet to come. The accidental email that had once seemed disastrous had ultimately given us a gift. The truth that set us free from pretense, from judgment, from the weight of others' expectations. And in that freedom, we had found something far more valuable than the Bennett fortune or the success of Horizon Solutions. We had found authentic connection across differences that once seemed insurmountable. We had found family, complicated, imperfect, but genuine. The gold digger accusations had backfired spectacularly, revealing instead a woman of substance and determination who had earned her place at every table. And in that revelation, both families had found something more precious than money or status: the capacity to grow, to change, to build bridges where once there had been only chasms of misunderstanding. As we arrived home and I looked up at the stars visible despite the city lights, I felt gratitude for the journey. Every difficult step of it. Some mistakes, it seemed, were actually beginnings in disguise. This one had led us here, to this moment of genuine connection and promising future. And I wouldn't change a thing. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.